Welcome everybody. As always, please do me a favor and let me know if the audio and visual is all good on your end. I am going to assume it is, and so I'm just going to hop right into the charts here. So first of all, guys, I am sorry as I've been slacking on the streams lately, but Bitcoin really hasn't been doing anything the last couple of weeks. I'm starting to feel like a bit of a broken record talking about this 4-hour STUBER resistance here. We keep testing it with big old nothing burgers for follow through, no big sell offs, no big breakouts. You guys know my opinion about this. Resistance is resistance until it breaks, and it hasn't broke yet. However, I will give credit to the bulls that, they've been testing this resistance zone a lot longer than I was assuming they would. So it's starting to feel like this thing could actually go full send any day now, smash through. However, one more time, that is just a feeling, and the actual technicals have not really changed yet over the last couple of weeks. So until it actually breaks, I can't really change my opinion all too much, other than the fact that, at least we aren't seeing the bears, take full advantage and really pull the trigger on this, hammering this market into the ground. So, I've probably shorted this little zone here 15 to 20 times over the last couple of weeks at this point. The odd small scalp size risk loss and a bunch of positions that ended up hitting my first or second scalp target before getting stopped out on the rest, which really that's fine by me as well. So first things first, you guys, thank you so much for being here with me once again. I see some familiar faces. Love to see you guys here again. Thank you for being here. If you do appreciate these streams, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't to this channel so you don't miss these streams, but I'm going to assume you are subscribed. But yeah, guys, like I said, not a heck of a lot has changed yet. This 4-hour resistance pocket, it's just still there. I mean, that's all there is to it. Like I said, the fact that we keep testing it does seem like it wants to break through. It just hasn't yet, but it's something that I am being a little bit cautious of. Like I said, I keep shorting this resistance zone when I see lower time frame setups matching up with this 4-hour zone, basically. And really, until anything changes, I'm just going to keep doing that, and we're just going to have to go from there. So I mean, as it stands right now, I am in a couple of shorts. One, I did share this in the Telegram as well when we were flirting with the 4-hour 886 as well. On the 1 minute, we ended up having a bit of a swing fail. So I do still have, I believe it's about 40% of my position is still running from up here. Like I said, I've taken about 60% off the table because it obviously hit a couple of my scalp targets. And then I just ended up taking a little bit more when there was signs of a reversal. But I still do want to hang on to that position. And I do have another position that I opened earlier today, which is damn near at break even right now. I did already hit a first target. I have closed a quarter of the position. So even if it gets stopped out right now, I actually haven't bumped up my stop loss on this one yet. I have it above this, basically this structure up here. If we end up getting back into this fib pocket once again and we start breaking some of the structure, I'll cut my losses on that position at that point. That's totally fine. Like I said, I have taken so many shorts off of this level already at this point. And also the fact that I have taken some profits off this one, it means that the loss on this would be significantly smaller if it's going to get stopped out at least. And again, I still have that other position running with the break even stop, and that's above 110.3 thousand US dollars. So that's a nice position to be in. Helps me keep a level head in times like this. I don't feel like I need to get into any other trades. Yeah, I took one here. Like I said, there was a bit of a STUBER here. Let me actually remove this indicator here. And you can just see that obviously this is where we had a big pivot here, and pulling the fib down like this, obviously we pulled into this fib pocket. My entry could have been a little bit better. I never did ladder other positions into this one. So I more so just have a position from around the 786 there when I saw it there. But yeah, otherwise my average entry could be a little bit higher. So that's unfortunate, but whatever, it is what it is. And we are either way testing a STUBER fib there. The fact that this has already played out once, the fact that we came down, hit the first target, and now coming back up to this level, I have a little less faith in it now, so I'm glad that my position is downsized a little bit because I really like that first attempt off those Stuber fibs rather than, you know, if they keep getting tested, just like what I was just talking about on the 4 hour. That's where I start to lose faith in them a little bit. They are still valid. It hasn't been invalidated, right? It's not like we broke above the 115 or anything like that. But again, it's just some potential weakness from the bears if they aren't willing to pull the trigger and just straight full send this thing into the ground, right? So I'm gonna have to see what happens with that. I was mentioning in my Telegram the other day, something that's interesting that I was looking out for was we had this 3 touch point support level on. Actually, let me remove this just to clean it up a little bit. We had this 3 nice touch points on this diagonal trend line. I know not everybody is a huge fan of diagonal trend lines or just trend lines in general. I only really like them when they have 3 exact touch points, and this is one of those cases. Now, obviously, this isn't Bitcoin. This is actually Bitcoin dominance. So this is something that actually makes me a little bit more bullish on the market in general as well. The fact that funds are, you know, cycling through into riskier assets, basically, right? Because if the dominance of Bitcoin is dropping, that means that there is money flowing into other assets like altcoins. So I know a lot of you guys have probably seen on social media and other channels and stuff like that, yeah, you know, generally speaking, Bitcoin dominance dropping is a good thing for the market. Not necessarily every time, but generally speaking, at least that shows that people are willing to be in a little bit riskier of assets. And, you know, something that's nice about seeing this dropping, for one, you know, I was pointing it out when we got our 3rd touch point and saying basically, you know, if we end up dropping this support and flipping it into resistance, that could be good for the altcoin market. What we've had since that is we have dropped this line, came back up, flipped that support into resistance absolutely perfectly. And so far, we are seeing a bit of a rejection. This could obviously reverse at any time. However, that being said, there's a lot of things going for this, right? The fact that we are getting a support resist flip of this diagonal trend line with 3 beautiful touch points like that. They're very pinpoint accurate, right? The wick here, candle body, candle body. There is no wicks under there. So yeah, that's nice. That's the perfect retest. Same thing, this orange line here. This is my liquidity band indicator, the MDX liquidations indicator. And so this is showing basically an average of high leverage liquidation levels. So that is often, you know, used as much like a moving average, right? I mean, it can be used as resistance or support. Either way, right now, it is pushing the price down a little bit, as you can see. You know, we are just respecting it as resistance. So just on its own, maybe not the end of the world. However, it is just additional confluence there. Just wanted to bring up some other indicators, the MDX ALGO master. So this is the order flow, Keltner band's order flow here. Something that I noticed with this is obviously we are seeing some selling pressure come in on something like this, right? We're seeing that nice bright red box there, whereas the green, the support underneath, is getting non-existent. You know, there's not much green going on here. So again, on its own, it is what it is. I mean, that doesn't have to play out perfectly every time, but again, it's just a little bit more confluence suggesting that, yeah, you know, it does look like there could be some pressure to the downside. So again, I know that a lot of people are probably stuck in the same mode that I am, that this sounds bearish because I'm talking about something getting rejected, going down. Again, I want to be clear about this. Bitcoin dominance going down, not so much a bearish thing, in my opinion, because yeah, I would love to see altcoins go parabolic. You know, just like everybody who wants to be moon boys, who gets upset when I talk about things possibly being bearish and that sort of thing. I have been talking about the fact for quite a while that it is possible that even if Bitcoin gets rejected, because Bitcoin is the one that's at macro resistance, but a lot of altcoins aren't, you know, this could be good. And this could be a little bit of a green light, letting altcoins to kind of catch up with the market and do their thing. So we're going to have to see what happens with that. But at this point, I mean, that's kind of what it's looking like to me. So I wouldn't really be all too surprised to see altcoins start doing their thing. Hurley, welcome. Good to see you here, buddy. Yeah, so like I said, with Bitcoin right now, yeah, looks like we're seeing a little bit of a rejection, but again, we've already tested this STUBER fib and hit the first target once. So we'll see. I like I said, I'm still holding on to both of my short positions, just hoping this absolutely nukes into the dirt, but we don't always get what we want. So I could still take a little bit of a loss on this position, which is fine. Every trader loses trades. The important thing is having, nobody's going to win every single trade, but being able to control those losses when they do come is very important. And that's where having some sort of a systematic trade strategy, where you're not, just trading on a prayer, a hope and a prayer, basically, at least understanding what your odds are to some extent with back testing and that sort of thing. So yeah, up and onwards with Bitcoin dominance, possibly seeing this little bit of a rejection. I want to hop into a few altcoins. I know not everybody loves altcoins, but I just want to talk about a few of the bigger ones that people request quite often. One would be Hype. Now, I believe it was actually last week I did a stream here where I had mapped this out. I have not touched this in a little while here, but I know that I was talking about the possibility if we end up coming down to this support down here, that we may see a nice little bounce there. And you can see that this did basically hit my second target. I'm going to call that successful. Yeah, obviously it never quite hit, but that's a hit to me because, again, I always front run my fibs a little bit anyways. I never even traded this. I want to be clear about that. This is just a setup that I had outlined and just showing how basic structure works and got respected, right? We bounced off that 786 almost perfectly, hit the first two STUBER targets before reversing back to the downside. So at this point, we're kind of in no man's land because just like what I was talking about with Bitcoin, I mean, the STUBER has technically played out already. This is a 4-hour here, and it is a range within a range because no matter what asset you're looking at, if you're looking at charts in general, you're always looking at a range inside a bigger range, inside a bigger range, and so on and so on, right? So as far as the actual bigger range here, that's where I would be looking at these purple boxes. And I had these outlined last stream as well. Basically, if we're going to go to the downside, we could start looking for support levels basically at my purple box down here, looking for reasons to go long. Whereas from the opposite side of things is we obviously lost this structure to the upside here, where we ended up losing this higher low structure, right? We had high, higher high, confirmed higher low, broken. So at that point, we can also pull a bearish fib here right off our top here. And that would give us our purple box at the top there. So if we end up shooting higher out of this micro range, then we can start looking for resistance up just a little bit higher on Hype there. Shorting Bitcoin is bad for your health. Well, that must be why I feel like crap lately. It has nothing to do with hanging out on the river and all those beers I was drinking. Good to hear. But seriously, you guys, like, I know that I often am shorting Bitcoin and talking bearishly about Bitcoin. Understand that I love it long term. I love everything about it. The volatility is part of that. And that's honestly the main reason why I got into trading crypto, period, was the volatility. Not, I would love to say I'm in it for the tech. I would say I'm in it because of the volatility, and I stayed with it because of the tech and the volatility, a little of both. So understand that it's nothing personal against Bitcoin. I just love trading the charts. Ethereum here, you guys, you can see I have a couple of my key levels outlined here. This is one of those things I was talking about. Bitcoin is actually at macro resistance, whereas a lot of altcoins aren't. And that includes Ethereum, right? The macro Ethereum resistance is actually up significantly higher, around 3,500 US dollars. So actually 3,530 approximately, up towards 3,800. And then obviously there's a swing fail zone above the actual all-time high resistance. So, but this is basically where the macro resistance would begin, around that 3,530. So significantly higher than where we are right now. If we are going to test that, obviously we have this smaller range we need to break first. But if that's going to be the case, that's a 35% move to the upside yet. On a shorter time frame and looking at more the immediate term, even on the 4-hour here, notice the same thing like what I just did with hype. Just this current range that we're in here, I have our support level where we could expect at this point, if we get some sort of a tumble to the downside, that we could expect to start looking for support down here around 22.25, down towards 2170. And then again, obviously there's double bottom swing fail territory, but that would be kind of where the Stuber fib pocket is. And if I take a pull from the top of that range, because again, the same, we had some sort of a structure break here, right? We had our high, higher high, confirmed higher low, broken. We could even microanalyze, and there was a much more insignificant level that was broken, but it played out beautifully. Is we did have a high and a micro higher high here, and call it microanalyzing if you want, but it obviously mattered. That structure did matter in the end. So either way, the fact is we lost that immediate uptrend. So we do have potential resistance coming up ahead if we do go a little bit higher. And that Stuber pocket would range from about 27.15 up towards 27.90. And then again, there is still that double top swing fail area. Basically, I'm going to call it up to $3,000. There's just some resistance in this range here. After that, it's basically a straight shot up towards that 35.20. So that would be kind of what some important levels I'm looking at on Ethereum. Solana, you guys, same thing. I have my levels here, the exact same thing. Obviously, if we are going to tumble to the downside, where can we expect to find some support? We do have this 4-hour support Stuber zone down around $115.50 down towards $105.60. We'll call it. That does not mean we have to go down to those levels. It just means that, if we start dropping some of these levels, some of these, this structure on the 4-hour and start tumbling to the downside, that's just where I would be interested in starting to look for reasons to go long again. Again, it doesn't mean we have to go there, but if we go there, there's some potential nice setups. There's just some potential gains to be made off a level like that. And then same thing on the opposite end of things. If we pull a fib from where we are or where we topped so far, because again, we have this little bit of a structure break, right? We have our high, higher high, confirmed higher low, broken. And so that's why I have this purple box here outlined from 174 to 181 US dollars. Just a couple Stuber fib levels, basically. A couple coins that I noticed that were flying off the handle today were CRO, CRO. There is a couple Stubers lining up here. I don't know if anything fundamentally has happened. Honestly, you guys know that I am not much of a fundamental guy. I just like drawing these colorful shapes. But there is a couple things here, and I didn't trade this. CRO is actually one of my altcoin holdings. I've been bullish on them for years, and whether or not the price goes up, I like their credit card. I like their platform. They try and, obey the rules, so they hopefully don't get shut down and that sort of thing. But obviously do your own research and form your own opinions. But basically, I like their coin for that reason. And, it's nice to see signs of life when it ends up hitting important support zones. So this is actually the daily chart, you guys. We obviously broke crazy structure here. We broke a crazy downtrend, no matter how you want to look at it. We could pull something like that. However you want to look at diagonal resistance, we also obviously broke so many horizontal levels. I mean, whether you want to call it this one, really all the way back to this swing way back here, we've even broke that. So let's say even if we just want to say this was our high, this is our higher high, that's actually very clean. There was no random chop above this. Notice that I'm going to make this red so it's resistance, easier to see here. Very clean break, right? We just ended up breaking above it, but there was no break above setting higher highs and higher lows and messing up the structure. Just a very clean break, and then eventually coming back down and retesting the swing. And what do you have then? we came right back all the way down. We actually went below the STUBER target. However, we just went perfect double bottom, actually, absolutely perfect. And if we even pull a fib from where we bottomed there, let's say, I don't know about, that's such a big range. There's so much going on there, whatever. Let's look for something more immediate, something that's more recent. Well, guys, on this downtrend, we set a whole bunch of lower lows, lower highs, however you want to look at it. But even with this little pump here, notice where this ended up coming back down to. Actually, a couple times, right? It came back, filled that fib pocket absolutely perfectly, right to the 886. Just like more recently, about a week ago, tested the 786 absolutely perfectly, just kind of consolidated in a very tight range and broke the heck out today. Love to see that. And Bonk, same thing. A lot of you guys may have been hearing a lot of hype around Bonk lately. Oh, it's pumping so much, it's going to replace Pump Fun, all this sort of stuff that I've been reading on social media. But honestly, guys, again, I'm not really a fundamental guy, but I am a charts guy. And just like CRO, this is something I never played. I actually don't even hold any Bonk. It just caught my attention with how many people were talking about it. And somebody brought this to my attention that it had a STUBER fib play out absolutely perfectly on the daily. And you can see with the green line here, obviously we broke that structure, even if you wanted to pull it back another, because this is almost like a double bottom here. So I don't know if I want to consider that my confirmed lower high. So even if I go back to this one here, that I would confirm, because this is our low, lower low, lower high confirmed. So same level either way, it broke out. And since then we did come back and retested that STUBER fib perfectly. Target 1, target 2. So at this point, I know that FOMO is always strong going into resistance, but that's the thing. Just try to remember that Bonk is literally in resistance right now. Notice where it ended up. I didn't check this before the stream, by the way. I just, I knew that we hit the bullish targets, but those bullish targets are basically the opposite STUBER fib entries more so, right? And just look how accurate that is. I mean, it filled the 886 absolutely perfectly, and the candle bodies are closing below the 786. So far it's looking like it was a reaction rally, and we just may see a rejection here. It's not so much that I'm bearish on it, because obviously we still have an uptrend. We broke that downtrend and everything. However, it's just important to notice that this is, in fact, just at some important resistance is all. Going back to Bitcoin, yeah, nothing's really changed in the last few minutes here. Let me know in the chat, how do you guys all feel about the markets these days? I know it's been really testing everybody's emotions. Not a heck of a lot going on. The bulls are getting upset because we're not breaking out. The bears are getting upset because we're not nuking. That's all there is to it. The market can stay sane and a lot longer than we can. But yeah, let me know in the chat how you guys are feeling about the market. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat or anything. Other than that, I probably won't stick around too long. I just really, like I said, I felt bad. I haven't been on here streaming very much. I've been enjoying the sun a lot lately. A lot of kiteboarding and paddleboarding and canoeing and that sort of stuff. So a lot of time away from the charts or just checking it out on my phone, if anything, lately. But so I figured I really need to do a quick stream today, at least, even though really not much has been changing. I do think it's important to outline that, we have been testing this resistance for quite some time now. So be a little bit cautious either way right now. Again, resistance is resistance until it's broken, but we are testing it an awful lot. And I know it's just a feeling, and we don't trade based on feelings, but it's starting to feel like we are chipping away at this resistance, if that makes sense. So, I don't have a real strong opinion today. I know usually I'm very firmly bearish. Today, although I'm still cautiously bearish, that's just it. It's cautiously at this point. Again, thank you all so much for being here with me, by the way. If you do appreciate my level-headed approach, I know it's not always what you want to hear. But I try not to give you the, as much as some people like to disagree with this, I try not to give you the clickbait. I try to give you just how I see it. And, I'm just pointing out resistance and support levels and what I'm looking to do. I mean, everybody trades completely different. That's a thing to acknowledge as well, is that we could all have the exact same trend lines, the same indicators, the same fibs pulled, the same absolutely everything. And I promise you, we would trade this market completely different. We could I could take a short right now and someone else could take a long right now, and we could both be losers. We could both be winners. It totally depends how you execute that trade at the time of actually executing it, right? So very important to know, because a lot of people don't quite understand that. But yeah, let me catch up on the chat here a little bit. Jenks, CME gap fill at 91.8 thousand, then moon. A tone always tells me the gap doesn't matter, but the percentages, like with Bitcoin, don't lie. Everything I thought. Everyone thought I was nuts when I said the 77K gap would fall, and then did. Yeah, you know what? I will fully agree with you that usually the CME gaps do fill. I do remember, was it last cycle? I think it was last cycle, where people were not willing to accept the bottom because there was about, I think it was less than $50 on a CME gap had not filled. And a lot of people missed the bull market because of that. They weren't willing to buy because there was a $25 or a $50 or whatever gap that hadn't filled yet, and it never did to this day. So it doesn't have to, but I agree with you that they usually do. I don't know what the exact percentages are, but I assume it's over 90%. When that's funny. Even I hang out here in Love Tone when it comes to Bitcoin. I joke that traders are traitors the moment they short it, and yeah, it's good to poke fun at it, and it's good to have a sense of humor about it, because that's all we can do, right? I mean, these markets are extremely stressful, volatile, all that sort of things. You can tell when people are getting wrecked, when they start lashing out, when people start trolling, when all that kind of thing happens. That's generally not, I mean, some people do just troll or call people out or whatever, but a lot of people who are just lashing out, it's for different reasons, right? It's that they are not happy what's happening with their accounts. But yeah, joking around about it, and I totally get it. Bitcoin's a bit of a cult. We hate to see people betting against it, but you know what? It is a little bit fun. How does Sui look on the daily, weekly fib level? I can check that for you, Beats. Sui, you say. What do I all have here? So we apparently had a STUBER fib that played out here. I don't even know if this was here or not during my last stream. I don't even know when I drew these, to be honest, but that bearish one obviously did play out. Yeah, this is the daily. As far as a bullish daily, we got really close to one, but just from a quick eyeball, I don't think we quite hit it. Now we have to ask ourselves, I would consider that a hit. That is a 786 perfect retest. So unfortunately, yeah, you know what? It looks like it's already possibly played out, right? Because we tested the 786 basically, and we have hit the 0.5 target. So technically the first scalp target on that kind of a setup has actually been hit already. Where do we go from here? I'm sure on shorter time frames, or even on this, you could start to wonder if we're going to hit something like this. I mean, that's starting to pull smaller ranges inside bigger ranges and that sort of stuff, but I'm sure you'd see it a lot clearer on shorter time frames. So it's very possible we pull back. I would be nervous longing into this with momentum being it's already potentially played out. it may or may not come back to this level. It's hard to say, but yeah, like I said, it has already been tested. As far as, I do think that it has room to go to the upside. It's just I don't know if it'll happen, obviously, because the market doesn't give a shit what I think. But it would make a lot of sense to go higher, because the second, the full range STUBER 214 target is still up higher at around $3.74. And notice that if I pull a fib from where we recently topped out here, because there is some structure here, right? We obviously broke this higher low on the micro trend because we obviously broke this, then we're bullish, right? So we set a new high, we set a higher high, we end up losing that level. Or again, if you want to micro analyze, we even lost that level. So that's where I had that other mini STUBER pulled right there, which played out beautifully. But that being said, since we have this structure here, we could still see another one, right? So if I pull a fib from here, now that the price has continued dropping here, we could pull a fib something like this, in which case we would have potential resistance starting around $3.87 here. And notice that the 214 bullish target is just front running the bearish 786 a little bit, because it's basically the opposite, just the opposite fib pull, basically. The weekly, I assume, is the exact same. Yeah, same levels on the weekly for me. Yeah, it's obviously lost some nasty structure here on the weekly, whether you wanted to say this level or this level or this level, however you want to look at it, a lot of levels were broken there. However, it's very possible we already broke that downtrend, right? So far, I mean, it is nice to see that we found support right where we're supposed to. I haven't been watching this one very closely myself lately, but it at least is showing signs of life, if nothing else. It's just a little bit risky to enter any new positions on the daily. I could check, let's see what the 4 hours looking like. So the 4 hour, you can see we broke some structure right here. And notice that support or that resist support flip rather. So this is where micro analyzing comes in handy, right? Yeah, unfortunately it's too late, but had you been looking at this and looking at this structure, we had a low here. We got a slight bounce here, right? There's a green candle in there and we went slightly lower. So if I treat this as my confirmed high, lower high rather, notice what happens when we ended up breaking it, right? I am not in a position on this again, but it's nice to see that structure breaking a little bit to the upside. What are some indicators saying? ALGO Master, these so this volume indicator, basically this order flow indicator, it's looking like the purple support band is starting to brighten up here. So to me, it looks like buyers are stepping in a little bit. So that's nice to see with this new little uptrend that we have going for us. If we end up losing that, then obviously I think we're coming back down. Like I said, very possible we come back down and retest this support level down here, since we never really did after breaking structure, right? Trend master indicator. So we do have a buy signal as well that's holding us. I mean, to be fair, these are lower trending buy signals and we still have lower trending sell signals. However, at least at this point, it is still potential support for the trend as well on the 4 hour there. What's the daily looking like? Daily has a lower sell signal. Not great that we are literally consolidating against that resistance at this time, but really depends what kind of time frame you want to look at. And like you said, if you're looking at the daily, it's a little bit risky right now, and I really wouldn't be too surprised to see us drop and retest this smaller range support, if not testing deeper into the actual support where we found support last time, but possibly a little deeper, like the 886, for example. Really wouldn't be too surprised to see something like that happen. That's why the live liquidation watch is fun when we pop hard. So many bears getting absolutely wrecked. 100%, right? I mean, it's always fun to see, especially if you're betting against the people who are getting wrecked, obviously. But that's why invalidations are so important, right? Like, the thing is, if you're ever upset about a trade that you lost, I mean, the chances are you're using way too much leverage or way too much margin, or you just shouldn't be uncomfortable with a loss. If you're uncomfortable with a loss, and realistically, even if you're excited about a win, if you're like irrationally excited, at that point, it's probably a bit of a red flag that you might be gambling with too much of your account. Jan, 106.5K next. You know what? I would love to see it. That would do wonders for both of my shorts. Let me just zoom out a little bit. What did you say? 106.5. Where is that? So that would be down here. Honestly, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere for me, just as far as my fibs go. Actually, I could at least entertain something like this, and that would be getting very close to your level. So that would line up. It would line up with this potential support back here, right? Since we obviously reclaimed that. So yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I don't know if we're going to bottom there. To be honest, I think we go lower than that if we do see a rejection here. I think it's either basically we blast through resistance here, or we are going to be testing lower into the range that we're in right now. And if that's going to be the case, I mean, some other levels to watch would be if we pulled a fib from where we've bottomed at this point in this range, and that would bring us down towards 100.8 thousand, even down to 99.5. And then really we have that swing fail liquidity grab zone right down to like 96.3K. But again, on the 4 hour, the bulls are really testing that resistance. It's just, once again, it just hasn't broke yet. So resistance is resistance until it breaks. I just can't. But you always hear the saying, stick to your plan, or plan your trade your plan, or stick to your plan, whatever. Basically, my plan has been, as long as this STUBER resistance pocket is here, I'm going to keep looking for shorts on it. Eventually, it's going to backfire. Eventually, it's going to push through and stop me out. That's fine. Such is life, such is trading. Stu, do you think BTC has 70% pullbacks during the bear market, or do ETFs limit how far BTC falls? You know what? That is an excellent question. First of all, actually, before I get into that, I do want to look at my weekly chart because I just realized that I haven't yet. I will answer your question in a second. Another concern that I have with Bitcoin, sorry to kind of backtrack here. I saw a lot of people on Sunday evening celebrating this weekly candle close we had. To be honest, it didn't change anything to me. All it did was close the candle body right at resistance, and nothing had changed. The RSI is still not above 70. The price has not broken resistance. So yeah, basically on the weekly, nothing has changed either, obviously. To answer your question about if I think that BTC has 70% pullbacks during the bear markets moving forward, I do. It does not have to. I could very easily be wrong on that. But just to explain where I'm coming from, is every single market cycle that Bitcoin has had so far, every single cycle has had those big corrections. And I know a lot of people say, well, this cycle's different. There's a lot bigger money in it now. There's ETFs, there's BlackRock, there's all these things. Yes. However, you have to understand that every market cycle in Bitcoin's history has been different than the previous one. Every single cycle needs exponentially larger amounts of money in the space to get the same type of movement, basically. And I really think that bear markets will be the same, because even like there was a way, I could be wrong on this. You can fact check this on your own if you want, but I have a feeling the market cap changed on a much bigger percentage in our first couple cycles than it did between this cycle compared to last cycle. Every cycle you have way bigger players getting into the space and throwing way more money at the market. And that's why it always seems like this cycle is going to be different, but we end up getting the same thing, right? Let's go from here. And the fibs look funny because this is obviously in logarithmic chart. But when we go from cycle bottom to cycle top, notice where we end up coming back down to. That STUBER fib. Let's go from this cycle bottom to this cycle top, STUBER fib. This cycle bottom to, well, whether you want to call it there, and then our COVID came back to the STUBER pocket. But let's go the full market cycle. Where did we come to? STUBER fib pocket. So all of those have been getting those 70+% corrections. And I know, again, there's obviously way more money in the space this cycle, but I just don't know if that's really going to make much of a difference in the structure. Because, guys, this structure, I mean, you guys know how much STUBER fibs are my religion at this point. I mean, I talk about them so much, and that goes for all time frames, right? This is a weekly full cycle scale. You see me talking about it on the 4 hour. You see me talking about it on the weekly, the daily, the 5 minute, like the trades I'm taking on lower time frames. I treat market structure the same. And whenever there's a structure break, that's kind of the pullback that I look for. So the weekly and the entire market cycle fits that bill as well. So again, I'm not saying we have to go down there at this point, but when the bear market kicks off, I totally expect us to come back down to the 786. And at this point, that would be around 37,000 US dollars. And as ridiculous as this sounds, that is only if this cycle has topped and we would see a bear market from here. But I have no way of knowing that for sure at this point. So it is too early to say that we are going there. It's just to be open to the idea that if the markets do what nobody wants it to do, just understand what could happen and what I think will happen eventually, whether that comes right now slowly over the next year and a half, or we end up going parabolic like everybody wants. And you know what, let's just say we go up to 500,000, whatever ridiculous targets you want to look for. I still think we would eventually come back to the 786. It's just obviously if the market cycle goes higher, that fib pocket also goes higher, right? So I'm very curious to see, because I am honestly just as curious as you are to that. So I really like that question. Thank you for that one. Thank you for the great level analysis. Thank you for the kind words. I just try and keep it real. I'm not trying to give you... I know that I've been a bit of a perma bear in 2025 so far, and I'm sorry for that, but I try and keep a level head. I don't want to give you just the doom and gloom, but I also don't want to fill you full of hopium and get you wrecked either. So whatever you're doing, if you're actually trading, especially with leverage, make sure you're doing back testing and finding out the trade strategy that actually works for yourself. Because like I said earlier, everybody sees everything differently. Everyone trades completely different. I did cover Bitcoin dominance, and just a quick recap of that. I think that's a great sign for the market. Not necessarily Bitcoin itself, but the market in general. This is a level I was watching. I had actually posted about it in my Telegram channel. I had this mapped out. We had our 3 exact touch points, and I said I think it would be a great sign for the altcoins if we get a 3rd exact touch point and then flip this support into resistance. And so far, we did get that. We have the liquidation band indicator pushing down a little bit. So there's a lot of things lining up there that could be pushing Bitcoin dominance down. And I think that would be very good for the market if that were to happen. I would be very excited to play altcoin season. That would be a great time. Can I check PAX G? I sure can. I'm going to throw it out there right now. I know nothing about it. What would be... I'm not sure if it's on BloFin. Doesn't really look like it. I'll check it out on Bybit. Let's check out... I want to start zoomed way out because this is something I don't know if I've ever looked at it, to be honest. Mixed feelings right now. On the weekly, I see a couple things. I see a slightly higher high. However, I also see a swing fail where we just basically wicked above and then getting rejected off that same level. So even if this is going to remain bullish structure, it is very possible that we would end up seeing a deep retrace and retest this whole range, basically. We're going to have to see if that'll happen, but I just don't know if we're just going to push through this resistance our first try like this with a swing fail like that. What RSI is also dropping out of that overbought territory in an uptrend like this. I would really like to see the RSI above 70 if it was going to show a lot of strength. Let's go down. Let's go down a little bit. I'm already eyeing up a couple things. So one, I don't think this bearish STUBER ever ended up happening. You know what? I am considering that as it happened, and not only happened, but obviously the first take profit was hit, and we even got close to the second one. We unfortunately broke structure like that before getting down to this level. So that brings me to my next analysis here. Is a couple things we could check out. Is one, on the micro trend, since we broke this level here, again, that's kind of micro analyzing, but whatever, there's some little consolidation here. There was also this low, slightly lower low, confirmed lower high. We broke that, right? So if we just pull a fib from this low here, notice we are getting very close to that STUBER fib. However, at this point, I think it makes a lot of sense that we test a bigger one, like where we actually started this bounce here, because obviously we had set, let's say we lost our uptrend right here, right? Yeah, that's right. Because we had our high, slightly higher high, actually another slightly higher high. So however you want to look at it, we broke that immediate uptrend. However, we obviously set some downtrends since, right? And where our final low and lower low would have been here, here. That means this was broken. But even if you wanted to say this was our low, this was our lower low, this would have been our confirmed lower high, and that was also broken. So in that case, that's where I would basically be looking at pulling a fib from here, doing something like this. And this STUBER fib has not been tested yet. So not saying we have to. However, if I was looking for a long opportunity or spot buying or whatever, this is kind of the level that I'd be starting to look for that kind of a setup. So I do think it could go a little bit lower. Doesn't have to, but that's where I'd be looking for some sort of an entry if it gets there. But again, I know nothing about this project, know nothing about the fundamentals. I don't know if there's decent trade volume, if it's actually, a trade tradable with decent funds on leverage and that sort of thing. Sometimes trading altcoins with leverage, you can, if it's low volume or anything like that, you can get hit with crazy slippage and stuff like that. I have no idea if that's the case with this one, by the way. I just, like I said, I've actually never really looked at it, so I don't know much about it. But as far as structure goes, that's kind of what I'm looking for there. Thoughts on a useless? Is that... it is here. Oh boy. Wow. I had seen a few people talking about it. I've seen a few people trading it. I haven't been following it myself. It obviously has a very strong uptrend. However, I would start to be nervous now because since it climbed so aggressively, if it ends up retesting the majority of this swing, that is an absolutely devastating hit to the downside. So how do I feel about this? It looks very risky. The fact we did lose some structure here. Notice we're trying to break down from that. Even if we bounce from here, technically, since we lost that uptrend, we could look for a bearish retest of a STUBER like that. Again, this is something that I have not followed myself personally. It looks risky either way. There's such a strong uptrend. However, that uptrend looks like it is starting to break. And if it's going to retest support of where this rally really took off, I mean, we could see a devastating move to the downside. Trend master, yeah, so we lost the buy trend there. Don't have a sell signal yet. I wouldn't be surprised to see us come down and test this support down here. Just that we have the indicator also hinting at this, these little blue dotted lines with some numbers here. That is down around 16.7 cents, 0.168, somewhere in there. I wouldn't be too surprised to see us go down there. But again, no matter how you look at this, it looks risky to me. I don't know if you're leverage trading it or spot trading it or what, but obviously not something I'd be looking at with high leverage. That is for damn sure. It's gold. You're talking about PAX G, right? Yeah, I think I saw Eagle talking about that with the bot one day. I've just never looked at it myself. Useless is fun on the 15-minute. I could see that. See, that's the thing. I am looking at the 4 hours, so depending what kind of time frame you're looking at, I'm more of a 5-minute guy. Yeah, we broke some nasty structure here. So there's a couple things you could look at on more of a micro time frame here. As far as structure goes, there's actually quite a big range right here because this was our last low since we have now very recently in the last 5 minutes or so broken that. So technically the lower high on this trend is the highest point between here and here, which is way up here at about 28 cents. So even if this downtrend is going to continue, we could end up blasting all the way up here, which from where we are right now would be about a 25% move to the upside to about 26.5 cents. Doesn't mean we have to get there because there's obviously some resistance along the way, right? Something that I would look for in that sense is just looking for some basic order blocks. You know, this guy right here, for example, this guy right here, there's just some potential resistance up ahead either way on the shorter time frames there. And like I said, if the bears really gain momentum on this thing, I mean, that could, not saying it has to be, but that could be a 90% correction to the downside because we see meme coins and low cap, especially low cap memers. They do it all the time. I don't follow this one closely enough to know anything about it or anything, but I mean, apparently it's useless. But that's the thing, right? I mean, it's funny. So therefore the memes, the community could really just send it, just like they already have, right? Oh, you want fun coin on the 15-minute? I will check fun. Ooh, it is even on BloFin. Perfect. 15-minute potential short. I see what you're saying. It does look like we broke a little bit of microstructure here. Right? Because technically we did have a high a little pullback and a slightly higher high, meaning this is the confirmed higher low on a very micro level. I always feel like I got to specify that because people will think this is ridiculous. But yeah, so far looking like we're possibly losing some support there. If we climb a little bit higher, we also have this fib pocket up around 0.0148 up to 0.0152 would be a STUBER pocket there. If we go a little bit higher, maybe we blast right through. I don't know, but I agree with you. Right now it looks a little bit weak just because it's starting to lose a little bit of structure there. The 5 minute as well, it's a little more clear, obviously. Looks a little less degenerate, even though it's more degenerate because it's the 5 minute. It's just a little more clear structure, right? What is Bitcoin doing? Bitcoin, let's go back to the 1 minute as we were looking at before. Oh, nice to see that we are still selling off a little bit. Actually, let me get this up here again because I just want a visual of where my next target is, because my next target on this short at least is down here. Just slightly front running my 214 fib, so little above 108.3 thousand. But if there's any signs of slowing down or a reversal or anything at that level, then I'll hopefully be around to manually close that if it even gets down there, right? Like I said, I might still take a little bit of a loss on this position. I have no idea. But downsize my risk at the first take profit either way. Anyways, guys, I think that's about all I really wanted to go over today. Like I said, I felt like I really needed to do a stream with you guys because I have been slacking a little bit, just not being around the charts very much the last little bit, because again, Bitcoin just hasn't been all that exciting at this level. We just keep testing that same fib pocket that we've been testing for weeks now. And, you know, I want to see this thing break one way or the other at this point. I think everybody is with me when I say that I just want to see this thing frickin' move. But yeah, guys, I think, like I said, that's all I really wanted to go over today. So hopefully you did find this stream useful. If so, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss these live streams. And as I mentioned, if you want access to my private Telegram channel where I share some of my theories, some of my trade setup ideas, and just my overall thoughts on the markets in general, there is a scannable QR code on the screen as well as a link down below for that. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Thank you so much for being here with me once again. Good luck in the markets, my friends. Peace.